In this video, I'm going to be maybe just a touch more excited than usual, talking to you about two fairly new HiFi mains conditioning products from IsoTek that you can see there behind me. And I know all too well that not every audiophile will be as excited about this type of HiFi product as I am, and that's totally fine. But hopefully if you give me a chance to go through everything with you, you'll see why I feel the way I do, because really this has been a 10-year products review, and when do you ever see anything like that? But I want to start by asking you a question. Do you have any products or components to your HiFi system that you would say are core, or are that they're fundamental to the whole system, where they've stayed the test of time and other things have all changed around them, but they've been at the core of your system? I bet most audiophiles do. And I have 3.5 of them. The half I would say is this listening room. I've been in this same listening room for around 16 years. So that's a very long time, but it hasn't always looked like this. If you check out the very first video I ever uploaded to YouTube back in August 2012, you can see I used to have to share this room with my family, and we even dried our clothes in here before we built an extension to the back of the house, which gave me this room to my greedy self. And it's great to have that memory to look back on, of course, even though it's a little embarrassing for me now. So the room is only really half of a point. But what's not half of a point, what's been very key and critical to this room, or a core fundamental part of my system, has been the acoustic treatment that's been in this room. And I have had extensive acoustic treatment in this room, 99.9% from GRK Acoustics, also since about 2012. And you can see some of the panels here behind me. I have around 50 different acoustic treatments in this listening room now, which is very extensive, a hell of a lot of treatment, but it makes a small, very difficult room actually into a pretty good room at the listening seat. And another seemingly insignificant one has been the two HiFi racks, two of them that you can kind of see there behind me. I've also had them for 12 years. They've been core, right? I've had loads of kit sit on top of them. And the last one to talk to you about, most important for this video, is IsoTek mains conditioning. I've had their products in my system since June 2014. I bought my first IsoTek product in June 2014. I bought a Titan, and I bought more and more and more, and I've had IsoTek mains conditioning in the system for more than 10 years now. So a hell of a long period of time. And again, you can check and confirm this by looking at old videos from, I think, back in 2015, before I started as a HiFi YouTuber. You can see them. So I'm not, not making this up. There's a record of all of this throughout the whole YouTube channel. But why is any of this important? Well, I think it's very important, actually. It's very important review context. Like I said, a decade's worth of review context. But with that now out of the way, let's take a closer look at the two products I have here from IsoTek. The first one is the latest Titan in its version 5 or V5 iteration. And I also have here the latest Cygnus, again, in its V5 iteration. If you are familiar with these products, the first thing you will notice is how much nicer looking these latest models are. If you put the Evo 3, the last range, and the V5 Titan side by side, you can see the form factor has massively changed. And the styling is actually much nicer on the new V5. And I have had both the black and silver V5 Titans here, and the silver finish rocks in my opinion, even though it is a touch bling. But what I noticed straight away is how much better, more obviously, the V5 Titan and Cygnus visually match. That's a much better match than ever before. There are a number of changes internally, as you would expect, and some new things going on here too, with seemingly the least significant change being to the feet, which at first I wasn't sure I liked, until I realised that they would stop this happening, which is actually a very simple but great improvement for someone like me who has to change system components multiple times a day sometimes. I have to applaud IsoTek for finding a new way to make a very industrial and very function over form product actually look really quite sleek and stylish. I think they've done a great job with the new V5s. I think they look really nice and really nice on the rack, really quite stand out and striking, but I like them. I really like the look. So that's great. But why do I even use mains conditioning products in the first place, and why do we need them? Well, look, the technical explanations of this is way above my pay grade. I don't want to embarrass myself by trying to go there. So instead, I would recommend you go to the IsoTek website and they explain what they believe is the problems and how they believe they solve the problems. It's really interesting to go and read that. But in the most basic nutshell, what the mains conditioning products are looking to do is passively improve the mains or the electrical quality to every single one of your hi-fi components so they can all perform to their best all of the time. That is the theory. Again, I'm not going to go any deeper into that, but the reasons why I use them is because for the last 10 years, every time I've plugged hi-fi components into them, it doesn't matter what the product's been, if I plug it into the IsoTeks or if I plug it straight into the wall, it's always sounded better when I've plugged them into the IsoTek. It's been black and white, that simple for me, which is why I've used them for so long. But why do I use two of them and what are the differences? IsoTek stands for isolation technology, and their designs are looking to isolate or separate the hi-fi system components from each other. So each hi-fi product doesn't negatively interact with each other from an electrical or mains noise point of view. So it doesn't matter that your mains electricity might be generated 10 kilometers away. The problems start actually in your home by the hi-fi system itself and other components in your home. So the IsoTek products are trying to isolate that, to separate each component from each other, to try and, like I said, give them the best electrical signal to sound their best all the time. That's the theory, that's what IsoTek say, and it's also what a number of other manufacturers have told me over the years, obviously discussions with them on camera and off camera. And IsoTek also take into account source components like a streamer or a CD player has a different mains requirement compared to a high current device like a power amplifier. So the Titan is designed specifically to meet the needs of high current devices like amplifiers or subwoofers, and you can now power 3 devices from it rather than 2. So maybe you would power an integrated amplifier and 2 subwoofers from it. That makes perfect sense to me for the system I have here and a lot of people's systems. Or maybe you would power 2 bigger monoblocks from it and leave a space in the middle. That would be the way I would go. So yeah, it's high current devices, big amplifiers. I actually like linear power supplies coming off of them as well, and subwoofers, that type of product. It's specifically designed for those, but you can power anything you want off of it. I have powered everything off a Titan at one point. The Sigmus is different. It's designed to be a whole system power conditioner in the one box. So it has 4 dedicated outlets designed for medium current devices like CD players and streamers and lots of other things. And the design for these outlets is different and specific to that type of product's needs. But it also has 3 high current outlets, again for devices like amplifiers or subwoofers. But the technical design here for these high current devices is only a light version of what's in the Titan, I assume because of space and cost limitations. But with 7 total outlets, it's enough to power pretty big systems. It's enough to power and drive the whole system that I have here, I think with 1 or maybe even 2 outlets spare. And you can take the mains isolation and improvement concept further by having 2 or more units linked together. And with the V5 models, there is said to be a better continued start earth when you do, which I now know to be a very big deal here. But of course, a setup like this, a system like this, straight away seems like it's a manufacturer's attempt to try and sell you more units and sell you more boxes, isn't it? I'm not going to defend IsoTek because that is how it seems on the surface. But of course, you don't have to. You can just use one, and be happy with that. That's entirely up to you. But not every audiophile system's the same. Some of them are very large, very demanding. Some audiophiles' aspirations are, very high. So, the options are there. You can, keep adding more products to, keep taking the performance on. That's the theory anyway. Going back to history just for a second, I had an original Titan and a Nova in my system for about 6 years from 2014. And the original Nova was very similar to the Sigmus, but it was only designed for medium current devices. It was quite a big thing. And their effects were really easy for me to talk to you about. And the reasons why I had them in the system were for these reasons. I found that if I plugged any digital component into the Nova, it sounded cleaner, it sounded smoother, it sounded more pleasing, and I just enjoyed listening to it more. It was black and white, that simple for me. But the effect of the Titan was always different. Whenever I plugged anything into the original Titan, to me it sounded bigger, it sounded more expansive, it sounded grander, it sounded more expensive, it just sounded more impactful and impressive. I was like, wow, that's a big effect. And like I said, at one stage I had everything powered off the Titan. I plugged as many things into links as I could to try and make everything sound bigger. That was quite an interesting experience and experimentation. But at the same time, the Titan also made things the same as the Nova. It made everything sound smoother, more pleasing, more easy to listen to. So they were no-brainer products for me. Like I said, I had them in the system for 6 years and I was totally happy. In 2020, IsoTek sent me the Evo 3 versions of the Nova and the Titan. I still have them here. And when I compared those to the original, the difference was, again, pretty clear to me. It was all the same. So the music, of course, always sounds the same. We're not in the signal chain, so the music always sounds the same. But I found the Evo 3 versions of the same products made the music just sound clearer, tighter, more focused. And the originals, everything was a bit murky and a bit more muddy by comparison. So more clarity, more focus, more organization to the sound was a clear improvement. I did multiple rounds of comparisons. So yeah, after a while, it's like the Evo 3s are better than the originals, and the Evo 3 versions stayed in the system from 2020 up until recently, so like 4 years. So when IsoTek contacted me and asked me to review the V5 versions of the products, I was really quite reluctant at first because I felt if the improvement's the same again, a bit more clarity and a bit more focus, that's great and that's fine, but I might struggle to recommend them as an upgrade over the Evo 3. Different if you're starting from new, but if you've already spent the money once, an upgrade to just get that kind of benefit might not make sense. So I was reluctant to do this review. And it's also, these are hard products to review. You have to break the whole system down, make all the changes, turn it all back on, let it warm up, do that multiple times to make sure what you're hearing is clear. So I was reluctant, but I'm really glad I did this review because the effects of the V5 products are nothing like what I expected. And this is the bit where I get just a little bit more excited. To do this review the best I could, I spent about 6 weeks listening to the exact same system, the one I'm showing you now, the same turntable and analog setup, the same speakers, digital source, and mostly the same amplifier. So I was properly dialed into how the system sounded. I then changed the Evo 3 products to the newer V5 models. And all the main sound, of course, was all still very similar because these are not in the signal chain. And the sound was, as I was expecting, slightly more focused and clearer, and the bass was a fair bit tighter. But that wasn't the big difference. The big difference was from where the music comes from, like the background of the music. And when you hear it and you hear that, you think, oh, it's the system noise floor. I don't know if that's the right technical term, but that's just how you hear it, like the back of where the music is coming from. So not the music that's coming to you, what's behind it. And how that was much, much more noticeably quiet. So that was impressive, but that wasn't what grabbed me. What grabbed me more was how that affected the music. So all of a sudden, the soundstage in the music where this is produced like it, the soundstage, the vocal and everything would maybe had taken a step back or maybe 2 steps back and also 2 steps out as well. So like the whole soundstage had opened up, and it's something that I call an effect. I call the opening of the window, where you look at a hi-fi system and you see it through your ears, of course, but you see the soundstage appear and happen in front of you. But when the window opens up, you see through the speakers onto that soundstage. It's probably one of the most impressive things a hi-fi system can do, where it's called transparency, where the speaker and the system disappears and you see through it onto the music happening. And that is what the V5 products did. But what's interesting is I've had that effect in this room this year from much more expensive hi-fi system components off of the Evo 3 models. So the Evo 3 models are still capable of giving you that, but when we're talking much more expensive, I'm talking about speakers like the German Physics Borderland Mark IV or the Martin Parker Diamond Trios. Both of those speakers are in the £35,000 range, and the amplifiers I had here were much more expensive, and the source was much more expensive. So coming back down to earth, I'm now talking about a £750 music source and £5,000 speakers. Yes, an expensive amplifier. And I actually did not think that the SVS Titan speakers could give me that see-through soundstage, could really go transparent, and see through onto the music. And if you check the review for them, I did a couple of weeks ago, I actually critiqued them for that in the review. So I hold my hand up, I got that bit wrong. So to be able to, just from the mains quality or the mains products, to be able to open up the sound and improve the soundstage that much was a massive deal, like a massive step forward. And I'm super impressed by that. But I want to clarify, that did not come by a thinning out of the sound. Sometimes you'll hear a hi-fi system that sounds very spacious, but it's spacious because it sounds thin and it's lacking like fullness and like what I call like mid-bass, like it's lacking that. And the reason why the SVS Titans are still here is because they have this very big and bold and very full sound. And anybody who's watched this channel for a while will know that's a sound right up my street. And the new V5 products didn't take that away. If anything, they kind of extended that a little bit, because yes, the soundstage has gone away from you with that type of music, but also the sound that comes out to you at the listening position felt a little bit more expanded as well. So like if we're clearing up the picture and the soundstage is clearer, it's not just clearer on the speakers, it's clearer out to you at the listening position as well. Our left to right imaging that sometimes comes forward in the soundstage, all of that was all clearer. So for me, it's like the whole soundstage was not bigger because I only have a small room, but the space within it felt bigger and the organization of it felt bigger. And it's just, the whole thing is much more impressive. But there is a lot of money being asked here for the two IsoTek products. The V5 Cygnus costs £4,795 and the V5 Titan costs about the same. So we are getting on for £10,000 worth of products here. So this is, of course, a lot of money for hi-fi products that do not even sit in the signal chain. It's not a DAC, it's not an amplifier, it's not speakers. These sit before all of that, which is what makes the improvements or the changes of sound, I think, even more impressive. But given the very high total cost, I thought it made sense to try the Cygnus on its own, power the whole system from the Cygnus, take the Titan away to see if we even really needed it. And at first, I really wasn't sure if we did, because I really liked the sound of the whole system coming off of the Cygnus on its own. Yes, it wasn't quite as big. Yes, the bass wasn't quite as impactful and the spaciousness wasn't quite the same, but there was just a lovely smoothness and a really nice, pleasing factor to how music sounded from the Cygnus on its own. And had I just listened to that, I think I probably would have been pretty happy. But because I'd heard the Titan, I put the V5 Titan back in, and then that Titan effect comes back, that bigger, more grand, more expansive, more clear window effect opened back up. But also the system was a little more fussy sounding as well. Like the higher resolving power is a pro and a con. It opens up the window, so the system needs to deliver the goods. So there's a difference in that for you to take away. But I also wanted to test a mix and match situation to see if someone owns the Evo 3 range now and is considering the upgrade, where should they start? And for me, the biggest difference maker here was the Cygnus. So I would definitely start your V5 upgrade there and keep the Evo 3 Titan and maybe upgrade that later if funds allow and if you've tested it and you feel there is a mileage and benefit to it. What I found interesting most when I compared the Evo 3 and the V5 Titan was if I was listening to maybe some modern, medium, well-produced, bassy dance music, well then the difference wasn't massive between the two. I'll be honest, I found the V5 Titan bass was a little bit tighter, but the Evo 3 bass, because it was a little bit looser, it kind of adds a little bit more bloom and fat to the sound. So a bit of a difference there, but not massive. Where I found the biggest difference was music that's been produced to be a little bit more spatial. And it doesn't have to be like a crazy audiophile track. Even Prince's Avalanche, which is just a big piano and him singing. The way that music is created or presented by speakers in this look through the speakers onto the music happening spatially, with the Evo 3 Titan, that felt a little bit kind of congested, a little bit sat down, and not as clear from a three-dimensional spatial point of view. The V5 Titan allowed that spatial information to just be clearer and be present, so the sound was a bit more 3D. It had a little bit more like small pizzazz, a little bit more like small dynamic attack to piano keys and stuff, and it just made that just a more impressive and more enjoyable because it's got this bit more pizzazz and spatial 3D about it. So that's where I think you would see the biggest differences here between the Titans. To summarize this review then, it's really very easy for me. I think if you've got an original Titan, Nova, Cygnus, if there was one, there definitely was an Aquarius, and if you're considering the V5 upgrade, well then I think it should be a really big upgrade for you, and you'll see a big noticeable uptick in all of the key areas that these products work in and have worked for you so far, plus more. So that would be great for you. If you're an Evo 3 products owner, considering the V5 upgrade, well, I think the biggest improvement you'll see will be to that window that opens up in the soundstage that you'll experience. Yes, you'll see some uptick in like the focus and clarity, but that won't be the big one. The big one for you will be the soundstage. So you should listen and see whether that's worth it for you. If you're new to all of this and you're still not interested, then that's totally fine. I wouldn't expect a video like this to change your opinions, but hopefully you can see I'm basing all of this, all of my opinions on 10 years of, testing, listening, literally 10 years of every week, every day since it's been my job, listening to these systems and comparing to everything. So that's where my opinion for all of this has come from. And I just want to say, when we're talking about mains products, anything that makes a difference here is, it's impressive how much difference it can make. So, applaud IsoTek for that. I think some audiophiles will look at this and think, well, that money could be better spent on new speakers, new amplifiers, new DACs. That I totally understand. But if you flip it on its head, does it make sense to buy new speakers, a new DAC or a new amplifier if you're not hearing the best of what you already own? I'll leave you with that cryptic thought. So I hope this review has been interesting. Hope it's been helpful. If you enjoyed it, please hit the thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more reviews like this, please subscribe to the channel.